Alright, hello and welcome. This will be my ETC EOS magic sheet tutorial. I want to take you guys through the whole process, every magic sheet I make for a show. This course will be covering from the very basics of magic sheets to every single piece I make for a show. This will be covering all my programming magic sheets for my moving lights, all my conventional magic sheets, everything. This is going to be one of those things it will be for some people and it definitely won't be for some people. So this will be a long course if you want to sit through it. I really appreciate that. If you don't, that's totally understandable. There are some more simple magic sheet tutorials out there. This will be for the people that are maybe slightly more advanced or at least have gotten a little bit into EOS and then magic sheets. If you know your way around a little bit, I'll totally run through some of the basics like I said, but this is more for people that already have a whole show patched. You already have a bit of a file going, but you want really nice looking magic sheets for your system and your shows. I think that's it. Let's get rolling. And just to note here starting off, there are a couple files I'll be using throughout this video. Those will all be linked below. So anything I talk about, any of the images, any of the icons I talk about, those will all be linked below. These magic sheets are something that can take anywhere from a half hour to 2 hours if I want to be making a ton. I feel like in this scenario, I wish I could throw on some music and we could just sit and chat, listen together, but a bit of a longer one, but I'm hoping you guys will get a lot out of it. Now, one thing I should also note, I am on a MacBook, so I'll be using the Mac shortcuts and I'll try and let you know those whenever I'm using them. If you're on Windows, they might be slightly different. All right, so this is a pretty typical moving light programming magic sheet that I have here. I got all my channels on this side. These are organized by group, usually changes show to show. This is the show I'm working on right now, and that's what this looks like. So this is a show file for a specific theater that I'm working at. What we're gonna be building today will look probably a little bit simpler than this, maybe a little bit more organized, a little better here. Over here we got some gobos, and then we got some different parameters we can manipulate over here. Got all my color palettes over here, my direct selects, and then we have a quick menu on the left side right here. And this will give me different snapshots. And then down here we have some pixel maps. I won't really get into this much today, or else this video would be 10 hours long probably. So first things first, I'm gonna just reset this entire monitor, so we're gonna be starting new. First, I'll be showing you how to create that little side menu. So I'm going to hit plus, we're going to select magic sheet. I'm going to create a new magic sheet. This will create a magic sheet in the next open slot I have. So it should be 106. You can see down here, magic sheet 106. First things first, we got to decide what we want to put in here. I know at first I want to be putting a snapshot in here. So I'm going to scroll over to button right here. You can highlight it, it says button. Drag that along, place it in the middle roughly. I'll drag this out a little bit longer. You scroll on this right side, you have your controls here. I'm gonna have my X value be at 0. So that I know that's centered. My Y value be also at 0. So I know this is centered. That looks like a pretty decent size to me. I'll reset this here. And I usually like to make these red. That's kind of like the system color for magic sheets. I'll bring my opacity down a little bit. That'll bring the darkness down. Make it a little bit of a darker red here, even a little bit lower than that. This is your fill color right here. This will change the color inside of your box. Next we have our outline color. I usually like to make this a pretty neutral intensity. When you're dragging this around, at least on Mac, it'll stop right in the middle and it'll lock there. So you can see I'm dragging it up and it clicks. So this will be my default red color here. And I keep this usually pretty thin, 1 or 2. Next, I want to select my target. So this will be deciding what I want this button to do. And I'm going to select this and scroll down to my snapshot right here. We're going to want to change the way this is displayed a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer than just snapshot 1. So I'm going to select my font here. I usually go pretty specific. I like all my magic sheets and all my fonts to be the same. This Salam font that I use, it's a pretty nice one. It looks a little bit more techno. You don't have to use a specific font. This is just what I use. We'll make that font size a little bit bigger too. 18, we'll try. And then I'm going to want my target ID. It'll go to snapshot 1. If I hit snapshot 2, that's what it'll go to. And how I decide that is up here in my target. I can select that 2, 3, 4, whatever I want. Now these, I will end up moving these off to the left and right bottom sides because I don't really care about this. I care about what screen exactly is going to pop up when I hit this. What group of lights, what pixel map is going to show up. So I want to come up in my text and I want to say moving lights, for example. And you can see how all this is jumbled around. I really don't want that. So I'm going to come down to my fields down here for my text, and I'm going to select this box. This will give me some options where I can place this text. You'll see when I move it around, it'll move around. And I want this in this bottom corner. I usually like it to be on the bottom left. I'm going to drag that font size down a little bit too. We'll do its font size of 8 for fun. And then my target ID, that's up here in the middle. I also want that to be displayed down there. So I'm going to move this down. You could either do down here to this middle. I usually like to go off to the side. We're also going to do a font size of 8 on this, so everything stays the same. And with these, I usually like to bring them to a red color. just so that they're not popping out like that. The information's still there, but it's not jumping out at you as something else to look at. So then even if I have to know what snapshot this is, I can zoom in and see that there. Now let me change my main font. All right, and here's our first button. Pretty simple to do that kind of thing. And this is one of those things that once you do it more and more, you get better and better at it. So I can Command C for copy and paste this a couple times. I can use this however many times I want to create the same exact kind of button. Looking at some of these array tools up here, you can see all this empty space in between here. I don't really want that. I'll select my bottom one. I'll scooch this up a little bit more. I will select everything in this column. I will hit my distribute vertically button right here. That'll just tighten these up a little bit more, make them look a little bit nicer. Now what I want to do is arrange this one by one. So I can do snapshot 1, 2, 3, 4. I could go in here and select one by one and do that like that and take however long that takes. But an easier way to do that is going up to my renumber tool. I can select this. I'm already in snapshot 1. So I can say snapshot 1 here just for fun. Example, it was already on 2. I could have gone and jumped. Let's say we have to reset for snapshot 1. So I'm going to say snapshot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see this little number down here is changing. Then I will roll over and I will hit done. Now when I look in here, you can see these snapshots. It's displaying snapshot 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say snapshot 1 will be my moving lights. Snapshot 2 will be my conventionals. Snapshot 3 will be my top view. And let's say snapshot 4 is my running mode. This will display a cue list for my show and things like that. Whatever I need to see for the performance mode. This, I'll just delete this down here. For Mac, that's Command X to delete. All right, and then I'm gonna group this together so it stays in this nice tight bubble. So I can hit Command G for Mac, or I can right click and then group that way. And then I can I'll roll this down a little bit because I'll have some other things I wanna add up here. Usually I'll wanna add some haze and stuff here if I have any atmospherics in my show. The way I will usually do that is I will go to a rectangle here, drop that and make it a little bit longer, make it a little bit wider here. I will go up to my fill and I will just hit the X, and that means there's no color there, it's totally just empty. I'll go over to my outline color. I usually like to make this in a yellow. That really jumps out at me. I'll go down, I'll make my line a little bit thinner there. Then I'll take and copy this, Command C, Command V, and I will make a slightly smaller box up here. This will be just for my title. And then I'll say haze up here. I'll change my font just for fun, just to make this all look super nice. There's our haze, and then I will drop in 2 channel numbers. I'm gonna be using the tombstone channel right here. That's usually what I go with. I'll drag this down a little bit smaller. Now you can see, this is some of the annoying things about Magic Sheets. Sometimes the default way it snaps isn't the way you want it to be. So what I can do here is I can go down to my XY controls. See, you can see this is 27. That's not really a nice even spot I wanna be jumping around to. So I'll say we'll make this -40. That looks pretty even to me. I'll scooch it down a little bit because I like to add more titles up here. I'll copy and paste that here. I'll move this one to 40 also. So now you can see these are nice and even right here. I'll display a little bit more information here. We'll drop in a label. You can see this label is also moving around, not how I want it to. We'll jump that to 40. I will copy and paste this also again, move this to 40. Then I'm gonna label my fan and my output. I'm not gonna really worry about changing these fonts right here. One thing you'll notice, let's say I drop in these channels first and then I were to drop in this box. If I were to drop in this box, that's gonna be a layer on top of these channels. How these Magic Sheets work is they're working off of layers. So if I were to tap this here, you can see I have no way to access my channels if I have to. If I were to close out this Magic Sheet and click this, it's not letting me select those channels. That's where these layer options come into play. So I can select this, and if I hit this layer option right here, send to bottom, now, once I click here, I have access to these channels and edit them the way I need to. So if I close out this Magic Sheet, now you can see I can click these channels easily. Whereas before, this box would be taking that top layer, that priority, so I won't be able to hit that there. So that's a common issue you can run into. So that's just one thing to be looking out for. I usually will select my outlines and just send those to back all the time, just to make sure nothing is being covered up that I really want to have open. So let's say this is channels, we'll go like 500 and then 501. I like to keep my hazers pretty far out. Channel numbers don't really matter for this, but that's how you can change those. But again, I could have used my renumber tool. For this one, I'm just doing 2 channels. It's not much of a big deal to just tap in here and change them through here. There you have a nice way you can arrange your stuff here. So let's start to arrange this screen a little bit better. I can hit this plus button here and arrange this. I'll add another tab. And I like to keep this side scrunched really small off to the side. And you can just click anywhere on these tabs to exit out of that edit mode. You can see here, right now, there's nothing displayed right here. That's because you can see if I zoom out, this is living over here because when I scrunch it over, it doesn't follow automatically. I can right click this and hit zoom to all, and that will jump there. Then what I want to do immediately is save this snapshot so I don't have to jump around and have to hit zoom to all and add all these tabs every time. I can hit record. Since I've already input this information on this tab, I can just hit record and then click one of these icons and I can say record moving light snapshot, and I will label that. So now every time I were to hit snapshot 1, it would revert back to the same setup. Let's get into magic sheets for your fixtures. So I will add another magic sheet here. You can get pretty crazy with these. I'm gonna go like relatively simple, but just enough to show you guys what you need to know. ETC has a pretty decent fixture selection over here in this fixture menu. I usually, with my moving lights, I want to add a little bit more to give you what the moving lights actually look like. I really don't love the way their moving lights are designed right here. They're simple, they're fine. I like a little bit more of a detailed design. But for front lights and when I'm using my color source pars and just general pars, these are totally fine. When I'm using a par can, this is totally fine. They have pretty good for source 4s too. So let's say I'm making a front light system. Let's say my front light system are a source 4 type of fixture. So I can drop this in here. I'll rotate this around for my front light. Bring this around to the middle. It doesn't really matter position right now because we're just designing the one fixture. Make this a little bit smaller too. So the way I usually like to design my fixtures, if you go into this fill area, you can see down here it says link to target color or link to target intensity. I want to check those both. I will usually bring my fill to off so that there's nothing there when I don't want it. So let's close out this magic sheet, give you a little demonstration of why I want to do that. I will select my channel 1. I will do N for sneak. And then I will do I for time, let's say a time of 2, so I can give you a nice demonstration. Let's double tap F for full. You can see as I bring that up, it'll show me a little display of that fixture being on. You can see it also will demonstrate full up here. So if I have that out versus full, we'll bring that half. You can see it's just changing that opacity in there. But let's say I'm working with a little bit more of a complicated fixture. I'll Command X to delete that. Let's say I'm working with a par, and I have some more information I want to display here. So this will already come linked to target color and intensity, which is great. That's what I want to do. Usually for my fixtures, I like a little bit brighter of an outline. So I'll bring this to this gray over here. That'll make it a little bit brighter. So if you look down here, you can see what information is being displayed. And I definitely want my target ID. That's displaying what channel is happening. I definitely want my intensity, but I also will want my color palettes here. So I'm going to select here. Field 4, I'll do color for color palette. And I don't really want this displaying in here because that'll get super jumbled up in here. I want to display this up top with my intensity. So right now we can see we're running into a little bit of a problem. When I rotate this fixture around, you can see this is correct. My intensity is on the bottom, my status is on the bottom, my little exclamation mark right there. But when I rotate this around, my intensity is jumping up to the top with my status, which is what I want. But you can see down here, it still shows that it's on the bottom. And now if I bring this to the top, you can see it's reversed, and that's annoying working like that. If I jump up to my fields right here, this will change how this is displayed. If I tap this once, this is giving me an interior, so this will build everything up on the interior. If I tap it again, this mode is on exterior bounds, which is what I want exactly. And you can see my status is on the bottom, it's on the bottom, displayed right here. My intensity is on the top over here. Now it's displaying on the top correctly. If I move my status up to the top, which is what I usually want, now whenever I rotate around this fixture, this will stay on the exterior on the top exactly where I put it. So no matter where this goes, I know all my information is going to stay in the same spot. So with that said, let's bring my color to the top. Now this is displayed exactly where I want. Like I said, this will stay, no matter what I do, this will stay in the same spot. What I will usually do with my intensity is I will bold. You can see this becomes bold, and I will underline that also, just so that really jumps out at me. I will also take my text and I will up this font size to about 25. That's usually a good font size I found with this. And then let's bump up my other ones to 20, just so they don't seem crazy jump. I'll also bring my color palette to 25. I really like these to be big so that I can see these no matter where they are. If I'm far away on the monitor, it's still pretty visible. Another thing I want to do here is adjust my target ID, because now you can see all of this text is pretty big, this is pretty small. My target ID is the most important number on this entire magic sheet. I always want to know what channel I'm affecting. So this I like to bring up to like a 40. I might even say let's bring this up to a 55. That seems pretty nice. So now anywhere on my magic sheet, even if I'm zoomed out pretty far, I can still see at least what channel I'm affecting. What I usually like to do, and you probably saw in the original magic sheet that I was showing, is I like to make a little box around this so this information for this light is all kind of enclosed in its own little thing. So what I'm going to do for that is grab this round rectangle, drop that in here. I'll make this a little bit wider here, bring it up past the full so it'll enclose all of that. Then scroll up to my fill. I can uncheck these two because I don't need them, and then I will take all of the color out. So that's just blank and open right there. Then what I'll do is I'll take my outline color and I'll make it that same gray that we used for this fixture. And you can see right now how there's a line going across my one. I really don't want that. So I'm gonna have to go back to my layers and send this to the bottom. And now that one's gonna pop out just like that. And now this fixture just has its own little box. So all of the information for this fixture will live here. I'll probably scrunch this top down just a little bit just to save that little bit of space there. Then what I can do is I can group this, Command G, and then I will create an array with this. So I'll go up to my create array. Let's do my 10 fixtures again. I'll up the space a little bit here, and then I'll create that. So now we have a really nice array of our fixtures here, and each have their own little contained box. I'm just gonna subtract a little bit of these here. We don't really need all that for this demonstration, but I'll take and select all of these now and group this all together. Scroll down, bring these to my 0, just to center these, and then I'll give these their own box. So this will be, say, let's say group 1. So I'll take my rectangle, drag this so that these fit just like that, give these their own little thing, and then I will take my color out, don't need these. I'll bring my outline color back to that same gray, and I think the thickness of this will take it down a little bit. Same with these, so I'll scooch that over. I will Shift Command G to delete that group, and then I'll have to select these again, Shift Command G to delete that group again so I can get all these separated. And I'll select this, I'll bring these down just a little notch there. There's no reason they need to be that thick. Alright, one thing I need to do too is I'll address these fixtures. So let's go to my renumber tool again, then my channels, and then I'll hit enter. So now I can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's say I have 6 front lights here, and then I can hit done, and then I will bring my rectangle back here. We can scrunch this in just a little more too on these. Alright, this is looking pretty good so far. I'm going to bring this top down just a little bit, and then scooch that up some more, just so these are kind of centered nicely. And then what I can do is copy and paste this, scooch this up, create a smaller box. Again, this will be for my text up here. I'll do it pretty thin, and then I'll create another one. Just copy and paste that. I'll make this one a little bit thicker. This will be my main title. So this here, I like to give this one a fill color. So let's give this a fill color of that gray. Now that this has a fill color, let's give it a title. So we'll call this, I'll say, Downstage Fill. And then there's my title here. That obviously, we can make that look a little bit nicer. The first thing I'm going to do is make my color darker. So I'm going to take this all the way down. I'll make that black. And then I will put that in bold. And I will also make that size a lot bigger. So I'll go like 25. Maybe we'll even take this up to a 40. That looks pretty good to me. Then down here, what I usually like to do is do a second bar for my fixture type. Let's say these are color source pars. So I can say color source par. And then I will take both of these to my font. I'll take this bar, make it a little bit smaller. We'll go to a 18. That looks pretty good. So then I just know these are all color source pars. And then one thing I like to do is add the group number. So let's say this is group 1. What I usually do is I will go to the end of this title, do a dash, space, 1, space, dash. And this is telling me this is group 1. So whenever I select group 1, it'll select all of these fixtures here. I already have the channel numbers. It's instead of saying 1 through 6, I can easily just say group 1, full, full. That'll bring all of these up. The next thing I'll want to do is I want to make sure, like I talked about before, none of these layers are overlapping any of the things that are really important to me. I will select all of my outlines and my titles. I'm going to scooch those up for a second. I'm going to group all of these lights together. So we'll do Command G, and then I will group this all together. So I'll go Command G. Then I will revert all of these back to 0 so that everything is nice and evenly centered. Select my lights, bring these to 0. Then I want to just drag these around, make sure that these are nice and evenly centered. That looks pretty good to me. And then I'll select both of these elements and I will Command G, group all of that. So now this is one whole element. In practice, that's one thing you really want to try and do, because if someone comes in and starts messing with your stuff, not that someone would do that on purpose. If someone comes into your theater, they're like, hey, I want to check some of this stuff out. They have to then ungroup this, ungroup this. They have to ungroup a ton of stuff to even start messing with any of this. So it's just a nice little safety thing I like to do, is grouping everything together. And then finally, towards the end, once I have everything, I'll group every single piece together so that nothing can be moved. I'm the only one who really knows what I need to ungroup to move what I need to move. So this is a pretty good layout for some of my downstage stuff. One other thing I like to do is I will add an arrow in here to show you what direction these are facing. This is not something that's like you have to do. This is just a little stylistic thing that I like to do. So I'll take this arrow, we'll scrunch this down a little bit here. We're gonna drag that height down a little bit. I like to put these on either outside ends here. And I'm gonna make these black. I don't care about my outline here. We can just remove that. And then I'll uncheck these boxes. We'll turn this black. So there we got a nice little arrow. And then what I'm gonna do, copy and paste that. And then I can check what my X value is. It's 777. So I can select this and do negative 777, and that'll just jump that right to the other side, just like that. Now we have nice little arrows showing which way our fixtures are positioned. Let's say I'm doing the same kind of formation, but I want it to be top light. So I want to basically flip this whole thing the other way. I can just Command C and Command V for paste. And then what I want to do is ungroup all of these elements so I can flip some of this stuff around. So I'm going to say Shift Command G will ungroup everything. Then I will select all my outlines and my text and my arrows. Then I'll just scooch this up out of the way for a second. Now what I want to do is group all of these back together so it's all one unit. And then I can go up here to my flip. And then I can tap that. And I want to do vertical. So then that'll flip all of these. Then I'm going to ungroup these for a second and flip all my information around to the right way. Come over to this section, bring all of these back down here. Just like that. Now it's the same exact formation, but it's just flipped around. So we can use this for a top light. And then I'll flip my arrows too. We'll go down here. And one easy way, you can just hit negative, and then that'll flip those over there. And then what I want to do is group these all back together, one unit again, and then I will scooch these up here. We'll bring these back to 0 so I know this is nice and centered. Scooch them down maybe a little bit. And then I will take my big bar up here and I'll label this my top wash. And let's say the top wash is group 2. Now, one extra step I can do to this, if someone's coming in and they don't know all the keys super well and they just want to kind of click around to all this information, let's take and ungroup this stuff. I will usually make my top bar the group. So when somebody will come and click this gray bar, that will select the whole group for them. So I can select my target and I can hit group. And then I will say, I want this to be group 1. So then when I would hit this, it would select group 1. That's just a little feature I like to add. And then I will group this, Command G, group this all down here, Command G. Then I will bring this buddy down. Line that up, we'll scrunch it down a little more, and then I will start to group all of these elements together. So this all becomes one unit, and then these are basically our building blocks. So we will keep building on top of this, whatever fixtures we need, however we need that done. And you can see here, just by separating some of this information, we can kind of get this feeling nice and organized and pretty professional looking. I can say group 1, I can say color palette 5, we'll just enter that in. You can see each light has its own specific column and its own specific box that all of that information for that light will live inside of. And then I can tell just at a glance, I can tell my group numbers and I can tell which direction these fixtures are facing without having to really look at much of anything. All right, so now let's get into the really fun or complicated stuff. We're gonna be going into the moving light magic sheets. This is where things can get pretty crazy and you can kind of go whatever direction you want in this design. First things first, like I talked about before, I really don't love the way that their moving lights are designed. You can see if you hover over this, it'll tell you what it is: moving wash, revolution, moving spot, stuff like that. You drag these in, they look okay. Like I started out using these, they're fine. I really have come to like more detail in my moving light magic sheets. So let's delete these, Command X. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import some things. So down in the description, I will have linked all of these files. But there are people online who have made a lot of different moving light symbols for magic sheets that you can just drop in and import that are super nice. So I've created a little folder for myself of ones that I use, and I'll leave these in the description below so you can download all these yourself. You come to this page here, you're going to hit the import button, and you can just select whatever document these are living on in your computer, and you'll import those. I've created just a little magic sheet element folder in my computer, and then that just lives there and I can grab from and do whatever I want with these. Let's say our first system will do a front wash system again, and let's say this is a wash moving light. So I'm going to drag this one in here, and you can see how much more detail this has versus ETC's simple moving wash right here. I know exactly what fixture I'm looking at in my rig versus this. I'm like, is this a spot? Is this a par? I don't really know what I'm looking at if I don't have any text around that. Obviously, not something that is major that you have to do, but just something that I like to do. It makes everything feel more professional, makes everything look a lot better, more clean. I'm going to make these a little bit smaller. I'm going to start off by bringing this to 0 just so I know everything's right on center. And I'm going to do the same thing like I did before. I'm going to create a little piece around here so that all of this moving light has its own information. And this is where these boxes can really come in handy because your moving lights have a lot more information that they hold than your regular par or something like that will. And having it be separated by fixture can really help when you're looking at a huge magic sheet of just a bunch of moving lights that you don't really know what's going to what exactly. So same thing as before, I'm going to clear these out, no fill, and then I will change my line size. I'm going to bring this to my gray again. So I'll drag up my opacity, bring this to that same gray, Looks looking pretty nice. I'm also going to make sure that this is on the 0 Y line so that my fixture is centered in here. I'm going to actually scooch this over a notch just so I have a little bit more room over here. I might even drag this further. Depending on how big your titles get for your presets and your palettes and everything, do what feels best for you based on the size of this. Next thing I want to do is you can see what's happening is when I dragged this rectangle over, now I can't easily click my fixture without moving this, clicking the fixture. So now what I want to do with that is, like I talked about before, I'm going to go to my layer controls and send this to bottom. Now that this is at the bottom, I can actually select my fixture and edit what I need to. Alright, first things first with this, I'm going to select my channel because I know I want this to be a channel. Let's say channel 7 if we're going off of what we just programmed. I'm going to come down here to my fields and select my exterior bound because I know that's the one I'm going to want to use. First things first, we're going to do our target ID. That'll live in the center. We're going to bring this up to a size of, let's say, 45. That's a pretty decent size there. That will live in the center for me. I know this is channel 7. Next up, we're going to want our intensity, so I'll move over to the intensity. We'll bring this to a 25. I'm going to select that in bold and then underline that. And then I'm going to scooch this over to the side here. And then let's do our focus. So we're going to go focus, bring this to a 20. I will scooch this over to my right side. I'm going to do color. This will be my color palettes. I'm going to put my color in bold. I usually like to do that just as another thing. That's usually what jumps out at me nicely. Then I'm going to go with beam. And these are the 3 main parameters you're going to want to be viewing at pretty much all times, is your focus, your color, your beam. Your focus is telling you where your moving light is. Color is obviously the color palette, and then beam is if your light is zoomed in, if it's zoomed out, if it has a gobo. Any type of beam palette you use, that'll display right here. I'm gonna bring this up a little bit, bring this to a 20. And any of these parameters, I like to put my color in bold, but you could put your focus in bold, you could put your beam palette in bold, you could have none of these in bold. Do whatever works for you. And this is about all I want for a moving light like this. All right, cool. Now we're gonna select this. We're gonna group this, Command G. I'm gonna create another array with this. So I can select this array here. Let's say we want 4 of these, and we'll do a spacing of, let's try 60, something a little bit bigger, with a row of 1s. By the time we create this array, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 fixtures here. So I'll hit OK. And there we go. That's a pretty nice array of moving lights right here. And then what I want to do is ungroup these. I'll do Shift Command G. Then I'm just going to go one by one, select these. I'll use my renumber tool, go to my channel. Let's start on channel 8. Enter. And then I'll do 8, 9, 10, and then done. Then I'll group these individually, Command G. Now all these are grouped, then I'll select them all together and I'll group these. So Command G again. We'll take these to 0, 0, 0, so that we're nice and centered. And then this is what becomes nice magic sheets you can copy and paste from other magic sheets. So let's exit out of this magic sheet. I can right click here, hit Magic Sheet Browser. I'll move over to the magic sheet I just created for my front lights. Then what I want to do is come into the editor. I'll grab my whole box. I'll just copy that, Command C. Then I'll go over back to my Magic Sheet Browser and I will go to my moving lights. Then I'm just going to paste this right here. I'll do Shift Command G to unlock all that stuff for me. I only really need one of these. I'm going to take my bar here. I'll just delete all these lights because I don't need these. I'll select all of this. And now all we need to do is size this up correctly. So I'll just drag this out. I'll select all my titles here and I'll grab one of these side and I'll just pull that out like that. One thing to note when you're dragging this along to make sure something is centered, you can watch that bottom center point. See, it'll click and it'll hit center. That's how you know this whole thing is centered here. All right, so we got this nice and sized up correctly. But now you can see again here with my layers, I drag this on top of the moving lights, so I can't select and edit these moving lights if I had to. So what I want to do, I'll select this whole group and I will send to bottom. Now if I have to, I can select these moving lights, I can ungroup them, edit them however I want. I'm going to take this top bar and we will say FOH wash ML for front of house wash moving light. There we go. We'll say this is group 3. And then for my fixture bar, I'll just say wash ML. I don't have a specific fixture in mind, but just to give you guys an example. Last thing we're going to do is I'm just going to delete these arrows. Don't need them. These are moving lights. They can go anywhere. All right. Final thing we're going to do with this is change my group up here, just in case someone wants to use that. We'll say group 3. So now when I select this and I record my group, this will all be group 3. One more thing to know, as I'm doing this video, I'm working on a duplicate show file that I am almost finished up with. So all of these channels have already patched like information to them, so don't worry about anything that's displayed right here. If you were starting on your new show, you would obviously patch these to the correct channels and everything, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Let's say I'm working with a spot moving light or a profile moving light that has gobos and things. I don't want to have to come up here to this menu and have to select through all my gobos and just take the time to do that, select through my prisms, run through this whole menu to change all this stuff. I want all this information available right here. I'll drop it in picture right here, but what I like to do is I will take screenshots of the gobo images and I will place these up on a magic sheet somewhere. Let me show you what that looks like. So you can see here, I have my gobo images for all my ADJ Focus Bot 5Z fixtures. I have the gobo layout and the gobo wheel right here. And then I have different beam palettes that bring these to open, soft focus, sharp focus. I have rotates for all my prisms and my gobos. And then I have stop rotates down here. It's just a super nice menu to have. Then I don't need to go into any of my moving light control settings. You can see if I select my group 15 as my moving lights, I have all this information over here. I can select all my color palettes and all my beam palettes and everything right here. I don't need to go into a separate tab for my moving light controls too much. And the way I like to do that isn't too different from building my side menu right here. So let's just create a new magic sheet. I'll select this over here. First things first, I'm going to want to drop in my gobo images. You can kind of do this in any order. This is just what I like to do first. So same thing as before. You can select these from your computer, anywhere in your file system. I've just got nice folders for my gobo images for the 5Z specifically. I know this is gobo 1. I can just click on this image over here and light this up, and then click on the screen somewhere, and that'll bring that there. I can just select these and drop these all in here. Does not matter the order. Right now I'm just trying to drop them in. And then I'll shrink these down a little bit. I like to do, I'll bring these to a size of like 80 by 80 is usually what I do. And then what I can do here is I will just arrange these like so. The order does not matter to me right now because this is just showing you for demonstration, but I'll create a little array like this, and then I'll group these together, just so I can get these nice and centered up. I grouped that just so I could center it. Now I'm just going to ungroup these again. What we want to do now is I'll scrunch these down a little bit. I like to add the gobo number over top of it, so you know this is gobo 1, this is gobo 2. So if someone has to say, hey, can I get gobo 1 on this wheel, I know exactly what they're talking about, and they know what I'm talking about when I say gobo 1 versus gobo 2. And then what I can do here is I can take my text and I can drop this in here. I'll just get it centered on that there, and I can just say 1. I usually like to bring this to a gray or something a little bit more muted. I don't need this to really pop out of me. And then I'll bold that and do a little italic. And I'll just copy and paste this over to each one of these, and everyone gets their own number. You can see this bottom row is a little bit lower than I would like. I like these numbers to look even with these up here, so I just click and drag and select all these. Come over to my Y, and I'll just bring these up a little bit closer. So we'll try 20, see what that looks like. Seems a little bit too high for me. I'm going to bring this back down a little bit. We'll say 25. And that looks really good to me. Now we'll take this whole piece. I'm going to group this just so everything stays together. We'll move this up a tiny bit. I will group this, and I will group this all together. So now this is one unit. I can move this all around in one unit. I'll zero this just to make sure this is all centered. I'm going to scooch this up quite a bit of ways. Now I'm going to give this little thing its own box. This is, again, not totally something that's necessary. Just, I really do like sectioning off my different elements. Keeps everything separated, looking nice. I'm going to bring my line weight down a little bit. Let's do no fill. And then we'll do some gray. Cool. Now I'm going to give this a little bit of a title. I'm going to add some text. Drop that in here. We'll scrunch that the whole way, so if I need to add more later, I have that room. I don't need to go in and add anymore. Now I'll get this positioned nicely. I'm just going to write, let's say this is the ADJ Focus Bot 5Z. There we go. Now we have that title there. I'll make this a little bit smaller. We'll try 15. That looks pretty good to me. I don't need anything crazy, just enough to show me that this is the gobo wheel for that specific fixture. Then I like to add that this is a rotating gobo wheel, because some fixtures have it, some fixtures don't. I want to know what fixtures do and don't. So I'll drag this along here. You do not need to make this the whole width. I usually just like to, just in case I need to add anything else. I don't need to do it in the future. I just already have that room there. So we'll say rotating wheel. There's only one gobo wheel in this light, so I don't need to worry about saying wheel 1 versus wheel 2. I can just say rotating wheel, and I know that's there. I'll put this in parentheses here, then I'll scrunch this down. I'll make this like a 15. I'll make this like a 10. We do not need anything big for this, just enough to know it's there. I'll also bring this to a gray, then I will bold this, do an italic. There we go. There's a nice little menu for that right there. Next thing I want to do, make sure my outline is all on the bottom layer like I've done many times before. And then I'm going to select my group of gobos. I'm going to ungroup those. Then I'm going to go one by one. I need to select my beam palette. So go down to my renumber tool and I'm going to select beam palette, which will be right up here. So I can say, let's say this is beam palette. Let's say this starts at 100 just for fun. So I've beam palette 100 it's recorded as this gobo, then 101, 102, 103. So we'll start this. So beam palette 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105. So now when I select this here, you'll see this is beam palette 100. So when I hit this image, I know that this gobo is going to pop up. And same goes for all of these. When I hit this image, I know that if I have the right beam palette recorded, this will show. Cool, so now let's add some more things here. Let's add some buttons here. I'm going to want to do a beam palette, so I will add in this beam palette button right here. This will just already have some of that stuff displayed. Now, I really don't need a lot of this information except for the beam palette number I will want to save. So I can just delete the target name, don't need that. Delete the target ID, we'll move it up here just to keep this menu clean. Then we're going to bring that to the bottom. I'll give that a nice small size. We'll try a size of 8 like we've done before. We'll try a size of 5 on that one actually. Just small enough so I can still zoom in and see it if it's there. If not, I really don't need it. Let's say this will be my sharp focus. I can either say sharp focus or soft focus, whatever you want to say. I'm going to give this my font again. I'm going to bring that size down just a little bit. We'll try 15. That looks pretty good to me. Now I'm going to give this a little bit of an outline just like I did before with those other buttons over here. Just to make it stand out a little bit, we'll give it this nice blue. I'll thin that down a little bit there. Just a little bit of a something. Then I'm going to create an array with this. And I only want really a row of 2. So I'm going to give 2 columns and we'll say we want 5 down here. So this will give me 2 rows with 5 under it. All right, let's see what that looks like. Cool, so that gives us a nice little array of buttons we can select from. You can really start to see with these features the cool thing about Magic Sheets. Once you have one element created, you can really just copy and paste it. And then this goes for the rest of your Magic Sheets that you create. You can copy and paste these elements into another Magic Sheet, anything like that. So once you get a really good base Magic Sheet going, you can copy a lot of the stuff over. So I'm going to group all this, and I'm going to select this, make sure it's on 0 so everything is centered. I'm going to Shift Command G to ungroup that. I've done that a couple of times where you group something all together, you just make sure it's all centered, and then you just ungroup it. Just keeps everything nice and clean. I know it's on this center line here. So we'll say we want this one to be soft focus. So I can select this here. And then my second row, we'll say this is a gobo focus. So we'll say sharp gobo. And then over here, I'm going to say soft gobo. Then down here, I can say gobo rotate. I usually just like to go ROT for rotate, just shorten it up a little bit. And with these, I like to do a plus and a minus. If you're familiar with how the rotating works, when I select to start rotating my fixture, I can either give it a direction. So this is saying it'll go forwards or backwards. So I can say gobo rotate positive, gobo rotate negative, and that'll just change the direction of whatever rotate. Then I can give it a stop rotate. I usually like to make this just 1 bar across. Connect these two, make this kind of one group. And then I will say stop ROT, just so I have the nice hard stop there. Cool. Now we have a couple good ones created. Now what I usually like to do is section these off by color. You can see in the other Magic Sheet I made it have it kind of sectioned off by color in the different groups. Let's say our first group we can do a darker red again. I'll bring this brightness down. We'll give this darker red. I'll give my outline a nice bright red. I'm gonna leave these blue for fun. All right, then I can take this whole section here for this is all one group here for my gobos. So I'll take this, give myself a nice darker green. I'll give myself a brighter green outline. Just like that. Then this kind of sections it off, makes it a little bit easier to read section by section. I'll group all these first, and then I'll bring my rectangle over, take it out to the side a little bit here. I'll roll this down. I'll take out my fill. I'll make that line a little bit thinner, and I'll take it to my gray again. Really, all of these color things, these are specific to what I do in my works. You don't have to follow all these different colors. If you want to just leave this all blue, you totally can do that. This is just showing you the different ways you can go about this. So here, this kind of boxes up this pretty nicely. Then I'll select this, and again, because I added my rectangle on last, it might be over some of these elements. So I want to make sure this is in the background so it won't affect any of that. Then when I hit these buttons, I know they're going to engage and not be blocked by another layer. So here's a nice one to get you started with these moving light Magic Sheets. This is a pretty good one for some basic control. I can do more and I can add the prisms, I can add things like that. I can add a ton more beam palettes if I want to, different focus palettes over here if you want. I usually like to keep my focus palettes with my direct selects. That keeps it nice and organized. I don't have to update a bunch of titles. I favor direct selects over the focus palettes being over here and here, because with direct selects, it'll automatically update your titles and everything. Here, if I had all my focus palettes over here, I would have to go one by one and title all those, and I don't want to put in all that work. I'd rather just record the focus palette, enter the title, and it populates over here. You can see this is kind of what a full Magic Sheet will look like over here. I'll have all my different elements. You can see it's separated by the groups. All these lights have their own little columns, their own boxes that all their information lives in. Nice little one here. These lights are all in the same bar, but in slightly different positions. This is more downstage, and these are very far left and right, which I use a little bit more rarely. So I've separated this into its own little group here. And I give that a little title in the gray. Again, it's information that doesn't have to pop out at me, but I still need to know that it's there and what it is. That's why I leave it in a little bit of a darker gray. So if I come back to my snapshot 1, I didn't have any of these panels here before. So let me add a Magic Sheet here. And I will add the one that we created for our moving lights. So you can have this here. And then because we only have one bar, I'm just going to add one lower. So I can hit this here and I'll add one down below. we will add a magic sheet here. This magic sheet can be from my moving light controls that I just made here. So if we pretend that these are all the ADJ fixtures that we made this for, I can have this menu sit here, and I can have multiple other menus for different moving lights down here. So a pretty cool way you can separate these out. If I don't like all the open space right here, I can very easily just come in and edit that out. Just do slight little changes like this, just to save a little bit more of monitor space. Just like that, then I'll select my next piece. That corner there, bring that down. And if I hit zoom to all, that'll just select that, give it a nice evenly spaced in the middle. But I will want to arrow that to the other side if I have a ton more. So this is a cool way you can get all your stuff set up here. Now I could totally spend a lot more time and make this look super pretty, but this is just to give you guys kind of a basic rundown of how you can start to build all these elements and build all these together. These will kind of work as the building blocks for your magic sheet making in the future. I know this was a bit of a longer one. I hope some people got at least something out of this. I had a pretty fun time making it, showing you guys all around the system. And these are things that are just totally customizable. You don't have to follow any of this. You could follow 2 things, grab 3 things from this, whatever you want to do. This is not like the be all end all of magic sheet videos. There are definitely ones that have maybe explained some of these things better. I hope I did a good job explaining some of this stuff. It's also worth it to note, I'm not a professional. I've been doing this for a couple years. I feel like I have a pretty good handle on this kind of thing. This is just one of those things where I feel like you see so many pictures online of people's magic sheets that look like this and they look really cool. And it's just kind of like you have to figure it out and do it yourself. And I haven't seen much videos showing how to make a magic sheet this in depth. So I'm hoping some people will use this and get some good out of this. Peace out. See you guys on the next one.